Welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about a concept that I love called future selfing. And when I really think about maybe what separated me and my success from many of my peers when I was starting out younger, it's because I really connected to my future self. I was a big dreamer. I would visualize what life would be like in some time in the future, where I would be, what I'd be driving, where I'd be living, how I'd be experiencing life, where I'd be traveling. And I was just so connected to that future, and I would feel it. And story after story, years later, that thing would happen. That goes back to this idea of what I call future selfing. And we're so caught up in the present moment. I've noticed with, now that I'm more of a teacher and a leader and I have so many students at this stage of life, I guess, is that I find that so many people are just really in the present and kind of what their life is right now, or they're really stuck in the past. They're working on trauma. They're working on breakdowns. They're working on all that stuff back there. And yeah, do we need to clean our trauma? Yes. Yes. Do we need to take care of clean up the messes from the past? Absolutely. But being stuck in the past is not going to create our future. It's going to slow us down and drag us kind of backwards where we're not moving and propelling towards what we want. Or just too much in the present moment, instant gratification, now, more. And we're not thinking about the future. And one of the secrets to success is being able to visualize that future. One of my mentors, her name is Mary Morrissey, and Mary Morrissey always said, everything's created twice. We create it in the future for our future self first, and then we start the action and start moving towards that in the present. And that's because our future, if our future is out here 20 years, and here we are today, this future informs our present. And it's really important to think about this. We need to be future focused. Now, not living just for the future, but it's to start with the future, start with some end in mind, and then we bring it back to the present. And I believe if we spend more time future selfing, we're going to create much better futures because we're all going to get older. We're all going to have a future version of ourselves. And so being able to, in fact, if you go back to my last video, which I talk about my DASH method and the importance of creating a destination, that destination is some point out in the future. So we need to connect to our future self. Since we don't think about it, we're just kind of in our present moment, whatever the dramas of the day, whatever they are, whatever, we have to get done type of thing. Like, yes, that's reality. But when we can spend some time, like I said, really visualizing what we want for our future, one, that's visualizing, like vision board, like I said, inventing, what do I want for my future? What does that life look like? So that's more of the situation. That's more of the vision of what we want that future to look like what house we want to live in, what car we want to drive, how much money we want in a bank, what we want in a partner or spouse, where we're traveling and vacationing. That's all that what I call visioning, and that's important. But future selfing is different than visioning. What future selfing is, which means we actually put ourselves into an older version of ourselves. And we say like, hey, Brad, if you're 45 years old, you're in the moment of this 45-year-old, let's future self, what's the version of Brad at 55 years old? What's the version of Brad at 65 years old? Because guess what? Everybody's going to get older. And the younger that we are, in 20s, 20-year-olds and younger, they don't think about the future at all. We start maybe thinking about a little bit of a future once we get maybe to 30s and 40s. But future selfing means to really connect to who we want to be, where we want to be, how we want to be, how much money we want to have, for example, at this future point in time. So in my Money Mastery School, one of the exercises that I have my students do is versus visioning, like I just said, what do you want life to look like in 20 years? We do the opposite. And the opposite is, what do you want life not to look like in 20 years? And I think it's a really powerful exercise. In fact, you might do it for yourself, is just take a moment and think, what do I not want? What's the situation I don't want to be in 20 years? Well, I don't want to be paycheck to paycheck. Well, I don't want to have to work at my job this hard every day. Wow, I don't want to be in survival financial mode. Wow, I don't want to be divorced. Wow, I don't want kids that are, that are not adulting very well, for example. I don't want to be out of shape. I don't want to be diseased. So it's a really good thinking of saying, wow, okay, I'm going to be that 20-year-older version of myself. And guess what, young ones? It gets here faster than you ever think it will. You don't think. When I was 35, I didn't think. My age today seems so old, for example. It was hard to relate to it. But relate to that future self. And then the next step in future self is love that future self. Love that version of you that's older. And to understand that you today, what you're doing today, if you go back to my DASH method, even the H and DASH is your habits and practices. What habits and practices today are going to create your future self. So your financial habits and practices today are going to create your future financial situation for that future self that's 10 or 20 years older. So it's what we're doing today, but then we have to reach out and say, what do I want my 20-year-older self to be and to have, and bring that to the future that will inform the habits and practices we need to be in to create that future self that we want. That's us, right? It's the real me, it's the real you. So that's the importance of the concept of future selfing. And then it's to understand when it comes to, well, like maybe everything, but like I said in the last video in the habits curve, that if we don't exercise today, we don't create good healthy eating, good clean water, good exercise habits and practices, and instead we're doing the opposite, and we're sitting too much and not getting outdoors and not eating great food, and we can see what we're creating today, what our present self is creating for our future self, because we're not connecting, we're not thinking of what that's going to do. So that's one side of it. And so we want to love our future self. We want to say, hey, I want the future version of me to be a better version of me one way or another. I want to be richer. I want to have better relationships. I want to be sexier. I want to have all of the things. So that's going to inform what we need to do to move our future self towards that future version. Now, what people do, the number one objection I get when I'm on sales calls, for example, with potential students and clients, is usually the excuse is, well, Christina, it's usually two things. I don't have the time or I don't have the money, which are just excuses. They're basically, some justification for not choosing to act now. But they say, but I think I'll do it in the future. What about next class? This class isn't a good time, but what about next class? And that's pushing the can out, is kicking the can, thinking that my future self, when the future self takes the action 6 months from now, that my situation is going to change. It's like, no, we want to make the choice today so that 6 month older future self already has the results by taking action in the present self today. Because I don't know, there's this belief that my future self's going to have more time, my future self's going to have more money, my future self's going to be more wonderful, is going to look better, be sexier, who knows what it is. But again, since we're not thinking about this like consciously, we just keep kicking the can out to our future self needs to take the classes, our future self needs to invest in themselves, our future self needs to save and invest. It's like, no, we need to do all those things today so our future self can be in a better position than our current self. And again, it's pretty simple when we think about it this way, but we're not thinking this way, and we're keeping ourselves in unsatisfactory situations. So yes, what do you not want for your future self that's 10 years older or 20 years older? And to realize that if I keep doing what I'm doing, is it very likely that I'm going to create this situation that I don't want for him or her in the future? All right, so that's the future self. Now, let's say your 20-year-older self. The next kind of follow-up question is, what if that day, let's say you're 45, and say your future self is 65 in this example. So you're saying, okay, 65, I don't want my 65 self to be paycheck to paycheck. I don't want my 65 self not to have any time. I don't want my 65-year-old self have to be this stressed and hustling and trying to, make the next dollar and pay the bills. I don't want my 65-year-old self to be diseased and all these different things. So like I said, that's the first thing to start with is what I don't want. And then it's like, then the other side is I want my 65-year-old self to be financially free, for example. And I want my 65-year-old self these things. So connecting to that 20-year-old version. Now, the next thing I want to ask yourself at when the day I turn 65, what if that day was my last paycheck? Because that's what retirement is. Retirement is unemployment for the next 30 or 40 years. That's what retirement is. And if we're going to move towards some day that we'll be financially free or be retired, we have to ask the question of, okay, who's going to pay the bills? What's going to happen if that was my last paycheck? And these are very important financial thoughts and decisions that we need to make sure that this version of ourselves is in a good financial situation. So what happens here is that we have our lifestyle cost. So today you pay your bills, and let's just say your lifestyle cost in this example is $100,000 per year. So that's what it costs to live your life. And those are basically your annual expenses. Now, these are expenses. Over here is income. So you, as a family, let's say, after taxes, you need to earn $100,000 a year to cover that lifestyle cost at your 45-year-old self. So what do? You have bills. Then you go to work. And you go to work to get this $100,000, and you use that $100,000 to pay the bills. And then at 46, you do the same thing again. In 47, you do the same thing again, and so on and so forth. And this is the loop. And maybe, you go up to $110,000 here, your expenses go up to $110,000 here, and then go to 120, and your expenses go to 120. And again, you're just in this loop, not thinking about your future self. Your present self is living this lifestyle of $100,000 to $150,000, whatever this loop is. So we get stuck in this loop. And the problem with that is we're not thinking about our future self. Because here's the fact. The fact is your current 45-year-old self, present self, is working for two selves. You're working to pay the bills of the 45-year-old right now, but you're also working for your future self. Because your future self that's going to be retired, for example, and not working, this future self doesn't go to work. He or she's not making an income. So that means your current self, your present self, is working for both today. I had the stick figure. So your current self is working today for your current self and your current lifestyle. But this current self is working for your future self. So your current self is paying the bills basically for two people, two versions of yourself, today's version and that future version. So it's really important to understand that. And what that means is you can't spend all of your money here on your current self and this immediate gratification lifestyle. You have to, a portion of this income needs to go towards your future self. So in my last example, I was talking about some students of mine. They realized that part of their lifestyle cost here is $1,500 per month on eating out. So that's part of this lifestyle cost. They're not saving and investing anything because I think they make like $150,000 per year household income. And this is they have some kids, they're running around soccer and doing all the things that parents do, and trying to cook dinner is very inconvenient. So, like many parents, they're eating out this $1,500 a month. When we do this future self exercise, they realize our 65-year-old version, if we just keep this up, we can't retire at 65 other than maybe Social Security if there's anything left at that point. So then they realize okay, we want to switch this $1,500 for eating out, and we want to move it down here, and we're going to put $1,500 a month away. Because what that's going to do is that's going to create $1 million here for our future self. So their present self is putting, instead of eating out at $1,500 a month, they're putting $1,500 away so that their future self is going to have this $1 million. And this $1 million sitting here then is going to pay the bills for the future self, because this guy, this young 45-year-old, is no longer working. And so that's what we always need to be prepared for, is there's a day that we're not going to be working or want to work or be able to work as hard and make as much money. So it's just to remember that our current self has two jobs: to take care of our present self and to take care of our future self. And how we do that is through investing. And we have to get over this, the way we don't value our future self, because again, we think our future self is somehow going to take care of him or herself. And it's like, no, our present self today, what we do today, is going to be reflected in the health and wellness, financial health, physical health, relational health, and wellness of the future self. So it goes back to know that our present self is taken care of today and taken care of tomorrow. But instead, what we value really as a culture is we value stuff. We value what other people think. So we're living these really expensive lifestyles in our present self because we're more concerned about what other people think and what we want to buy and what we want to have in the moment, and not what we want to have for this future version of ourselves. So the final part to this, let's understand, is that when they save this $1,500 in this example, what they're doing is they're trading, that they're giving up this real eating out. They're giving this up. This is real today. And today is all we can relate to, because it's today that life is busy. It's today that we don't want to cook dinner. It's today we don't want to go to the grocery store. It's today that we're tired. So we're not thinking about that future self. But all we can do is that when we move this $1,500 to savings here, we're moving it from the reality of today to connecting to the reality of the future that's coming. So we have to connect to that reality, which isn't easy to do. It seems like our future self is going to be just fine. So I'll close this up by just saying that it's important when we're what I call life by design. But really, in this world of becoming financially free, talking about retirement, talking about money, sometimes I think it's kind of talked about in the should, like you should save and invest, or you need to save and invest, and this is how you do it, which that's all really important. But what's before that is to really connect to the why. Why do you need to save? Why do you need to invest? Why do you need to trade $1,500 for eating out for this? The why is because we want our future self to be financially free. We want our future self to be able to retire. We want our future self to have savings in the bank. We want our future self to be able to fly out the grandkids. We want our future self to be able to gift money maybe to the grandchildren or the young adult children. We want to be able to do these things, and connecting to that future self version, like, wow, how am I going to feel when I can take advantage of the tax-free gift for all of my kids and grandkids, and be able to share the abundance and wealth that I've created by really connecting to the future self and how we want he or she to be. All right, so your exercise today is just to spend a little time, think about that future self, think about what needs to change, and maybe your habits and practices and beliefs to be able to make sure that he or she is going to be well taken care of in the future. And a giveaway I have for you for this video is I have what's called my 7 F words, and it's my 7 F words Life by Design workbook, and it's all about future selfing. So this workbook, if you go through the 7 F words, you're looking at these 7 categories of life. And that's exactly what you're going to do. You're going to future self and say, I want my future self to look and feel this way when it comes to family. I want my future self to be able to look and feel this way when it comes to friends. I want my future self to be able to look and feel this way when it comes to finances, when it comes to fitness, and all the different 7 F words. So it's just a really nice exercise that allows you to go through and connect to the future self, create those goals, quantify how much it's going to cost to live that life that is for your future self at any age, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and be able to put into motion how much you need to start moving towards your future self bucket. All right. As always, make sure to subscribe. I guess that's the thumb thing. Make sure to subscribe. Please comment. Let me know what you think if any of this is helpful. Also, let me know if you have any money questions that I can do one of these videos for you. All right, that's all I've got for today. Enjoy.